If you're joining the Flourish Podcast for the first time, this is not the typical episode. I wanted to preface this and let you know that I actually recorded this episode on audio only. And so I put some visuals in there for you just to look at some nature videos. If you're an audio podcast listener, it will sound different, but otherwise it won't affect you at all. But I wanted to make sure I stepped in here. But I decided to record my podcast while I was walking on the trail. And I usually use my noise canceling device, but I didn't have that with me. And so it was just me talking on my phone and a voice memo. And then I took that and I turned that into the podcast. So the sound is not high quality, but I really liked what I said because it was raw. It was from the heart. And so I hope that you really enjoy this episode and that you take the time and just forgive me for the little mumble and muffled sounds here and there, and that you would just get the full point of the episode. It was just really from my heart and just talking a little bit about where I've been the last few weeks. And I really hope that it's a place that will encourage you and that you would be able to find that time to give yourself grace in times that you need as well. So I hope you enjoy the episode, and please make sure you tune back next week when we'll have a normal, regular podcast. All right, take care. Welcome to the Flourish Podcast for faith-driven women who are ready to take responsibility for their health, time, and calling. I'm Stephanie Book, and I coach women to gain clarity, create simple systems, and build intentional structure so they can move forward with consistent, faith-led action in the work God is calling them to build. If you're ready to live and lead with alignment, peace, and purpose, this is the place for you. Let's begin. Welcome to the Flourish Podcast. It's been a few weeks since I've had a podcast, and I'll be honest, this is the first break I've ever really done in the last almost 3 years of my podcast. I had one slip up actually in December of last year, and that was the first time that I had ever missed a podcast. And it was generally just because I came back from vacation and realized that I was lacking one podcast episode. And I realized it later on in the afternoon on that Monday that it normally goes down. And I thought I need to get my podcast recorded. And it was already Monday. And so I just laughed it off and decided it's okay. Christmas is coming and it's okay to skip a week. So fast forward here to April, and I recorded the podcast for the first week of April, but I still needed to edit it. And I wasn't sure that I liked what I was going to say on that podcast. I don't know if you're not a podcaster, you might not know this, but if you do any type of creating or writing or speaking or podcasting, you recognize that sometimes the things that you record just don't seem to fit. I was just procrastinating a little bit on editing it because I just felt like I didn't resonate with me. And I thought maybe I'll just record it again or a different one. So I set it aside, and then things with my mother-in-law started to escalate and her health started to decline pretty rapidly. My son was coming home from his long contract. And so we were getting ready for him coming home as well. So instead of recording the podcast again and doing that again, I decided, well, first of all, to get my house cleaned up for my son. We've been at the nursing home with my mother-in-law, and life had just kind of shifted a little bit. And then we needed to get the house ready. And I'm also busy with my normal day-to-day activities and work and things like that. So the days were pretty full. And I knew I needed to focus because, though silly as it might be, my son didn't even have sheets on his bed. They were clean. But I had some things I had to get ready for him to come. It had been 9 months since he'd been home. So there was definitely some things we needed to do. And because we were gone a lot, the house needed a little bit of cleaning. So I focused on that, picked up my son. And then the next day we went to visit my mother-in-law. We did that. We spent some time with her. First time as all of family together. We grabbed a quick dinner, but it was a sobering one as we knew that my mother-in-law didn't have much more time left. So excited to have my son home, but also just drawn to sadness knowing that her life would be ending soon. So we focused just on her. We focused on spending time with her, a lot of time in the nursing home and spending time with family. And so later that Saturday morning, she had passed. I had messaged a few friends and asked them, do you think it's okay if I miss another week of podcasts? And I love the one friend said, what would you tell if you were coaching someone else? What would you tell them? And I loved that question because she was right. Over the many weeks we've been talking on the podcast, and I was talking about understanding the season that you're in, being respectful for that, making sure that what you're doing is aligning with what God wants, and also the season that you're in, and making those choices. I still want to grow my business. I still want to bring you value every single week. I still want to show up for you, but I also wanted to be present with my family. I wanted to spend time with my son, who's only here for a week. I wanted to support my husband. I had a funeral to help plan and so much more. And so I decided to take another week off. It brings me to today. A week ago today, we had the funeral for my mother-in-law when I'm recording this. A few days when this will air on my podcast, it'll be a little over a week. And I guess over this time, some of the reality of what I speak about all the time just became rang true in my heart. That I started my own business because I wanted to be able to be there for those that I care about. I wanted to have flexibility in my schedule. And I wanted to be able to show up for women that were just like me, who had times in their lives where things are going well and times where things shifted and changed. If you're fearing any judgment that I haven't done a podcast for the last 2 weeks, well, that's your own prerogative and own issue. But if this relates to you at all, if you are feeling this, if you're recognizing that, yes, sometimes it's okay to give ourselves grace and not show up as a perfect person, as a well put together entrepreneur, and just be the woman that God created and show up. Give yourself grace. I didn't post a whole lot on my social media either. There is always that tug of thinking, well, if you don't post, you're going to lose traction. People won't know that you could help them, and on and on. All those doubts start creeping in. The fear starts rising. The worry starts going. But I just didn't feel an integrity posting about building my business when I was just grieving and I was supporting my family. And so I did very few posts over the last 2 weeks. I looked at my Instagram and my following went down 3,000. Those are just views that I have. So yeah, there's a little bit of a cut. But you know what? When I was able to show up slowly this week, I was able to fix that. It will grow back up. And I can be grateful that I took the time to honor what my heart was feeling, that I wasn't trying just to show up, but that I was taking that time and being present in the moment. It's taken quite a bit this week to get myself going and getting back into order and back to a new normal. We had all kinds of things happen in our house. My husband's Amazon account got hacked and our refrigerator or garage broke. And those are just little annoyances, but they added to the stress and the uneven flow of the week. My husband had a difficult time really staying on track. Showed up at work, but carrying grief and all the responsibilities that come to him has been hard for him. And his wife, it's hard to watch him have to navigate those things as well. Now we have the Lord. I'm so grateful because I can't imagine walking through times like these without having that strength and encouragement, the rock that he provides. And we know that she is in a better place. And so the grieving helps as we know that she's reunited with her husband and her son that passed before her. And so there's a lot of peace that comes through this, but it doesn't mean that the grief doesn't stand. Doesn't mean that it takes a while to get back to the normal. So I appreciate you giving me grace. And I hope that this inspires you to take the time you need if these times come to take that pause and not live by the pressure or the comparison, but by just the faithful steps, the one step forward that we can move. And the one step forward that I could take over the last few weeks was supporting my family, making sure that we had food on the table or the errands were ran for those who needed it and so forth. That's what was needed. And that's what they did. And I'm grateful that I was able to do that. Another thing that I learned over this last few weeks is how important it is to have things planned ahead, the schedule, so that in times like these, we are well prepared ahead of time. Now, I'm still okay with not posting because I wanted to make sure that I was just present. And I just didn't feel like posting about building my business or things like that just wasn't where my heart was. And I didn't want to be inauthentic. I did a few posts, a few stories, but it really was minimal. But had I planned ahead of time, it could have been scheduled. And it's not that difficult to do that and have some things planned ahead so that it could have ran like clockwork and I wouldn't have had to worry about it. And so that makes me think about the different things that I share with you often about planning and having a rhythm and having a system. But I'm also recognizing that the month I had before all this started was quite busy as well, helping care for my mom. And so some of my rhythms were just disrupted in all of March as well. And so I'm grateful for the few weeks I had off, the few Sundays that I wasn't trying to hurry up and write my newsletter so that the few on my newsletter would know what was coming up in the podcast and other things for the week. And so here I am, a week after the funeral, recorded these words on a walk. And I'm not sure at this point if I'm going to share this winded, loud recording or if I will re-record this as a video. And we'll see. We'll see how it comes across. And I did record that April episode, and I do have plans to come through the rest of the month. But right now, this is what I wanted to share with you, the message I wanted to share, and just help you see that this is real life. You run businesses, but when you're on your own, you're a solopreneur, you do all the things. You are the CEO, the COO, the CFO, your customer relation, you are the copywriters, you are all the things, right? So in your businesses, there may be times where you need to give yourself some grace. And I remember worrying about not doing a podcast because I remember hearing Hal Elrod talk about how he had never missed an episode, and he's fought cancer and so many different things. And so I thought, well, I can't do that. But I also know he had a team. Had I said, hey, to someone else, if I would have asked them and said, hey, would you be a host and host my podcast this week and just do a little note? I could have done that, but I didn't. Didn't have a team. I didn't even think about that in the time. I was just focused on my family. And I remember just being worried that somehow I would lose credibility if I didn't show up every single week on time. But then I realized that I put expectations on myself that nobody else expects except for me. And if someone does expect that, then maybe I'm not the right person for them. Maybe I'm not the right person for them to listen to. I just knew that I was doing exactly what I felt God was calling me to do, which is to stop, be still, be present with my family, and connect with Him. And so that's what I did. So, friends, I just want to encourage you to take life one day at a time. Yes, look ahead, plan those steps that you can take, and choose the one next small step ahead of you. They don't have to be giant leaps. You still have the vision ahead. And even if there are a few weeks or a few days that are just not like normal, give yourself some grace and then just continue on when you're ready. One of the things I always loved about the health program when I started it was that it was not a pass or fail. It was not a good or bad. It was just a choice. And we make one choice and then we make the next. And then sometimes we make the choice that maybe doesn't fit us the best, or maybe it's out of the ordinary, or maybe it's not in the routine or the plan that you made. But then you know what you get to do? A few hours later, you just pick up and just take that next step. Drink that glass of water, eat that healthy food, read that book, take that next walk, write that next post, whatever it is. Just because you've taken a pause doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means it's part of your movement. It's part of your growing. It's part of your journey. So wherever this reaches you today, they're in a season where you're just trying to figure it all out and you don't know what your next step is. Maybe you've been sitting with procrastination for a long time because you're just afraid of what to come, what to do, or maybe that you've just paused so long that you think no one's going to even know you're there. I don't know what it is, but I encourage you to take the next best step for you in this season. If you need help, as always, I'm here. I would love to connect with you on a quick Zoom and we could just chat. I would love to hear what your dreams are and what you're passionate about, or where you're stuck, where you're feeling like you just don't have it, where the fear is, where the lack of control might feel, where the system you need to put together. I would love to have that conversation because I don't want you to feel like you can't step back in and do what you want to do. If you're unsure of what the next step is, let's talk about that. Let's have a conversation and share what God is laying on your heart. And you never know what one conversation can do. One little bit of clarity that could move you forward, propel you toward what you want. I love being able to help coach women do that because I was coached. I've been taught how to take one little step at a time. And it's because I've invested in myself, in coaching and programs and reading and listening to podcasts and books, connecting with other entrepreneurs and faithful friends. So we don't need to do this alone. We have the best business partner possible, and that's the Lord. And He will guide us and walk us through every step of the way. He's equipped us for everything we need to do and all the things that He's laid on our heart. And you just get that choice to make that one next step forward, whether it's raising your hand and saying, Steph, I need some help. Can we jump on a call? Or it's calling your business coach, speaking with your spouse about what the next season could look like for you. Just don't stop. Maybe take a pause, like I did last few weeks, but then jump back in when you're refreshed, when you've had time to pray, and then step back in. You've got this, my friend. So please remember that you are worthy and capable of living a full and flourishing life. Success isn't just possible, it's meant for you. Take care.
Thank you for spending time with me today. If this episode encouraged you, I invite you to take one simple, intentional step forward. You You will find many resources linked in the show notes to support you as you build with clarity and faith-led action. If this conversation resonated with you, please share the podcast so that this message can reach other women who are ready to move forward with purpose. Until next time, remember, you are worthy and capable of living a full and flourishing life. Success isn't just possible, it's meant for you.